Hello.
Hi,
My
Michelle.
name my name's Michelle, and I'm a medium at Wonewoc Spiritualist Camp in 2022 for the upcoming season. And I was a reader last year for 2021. And I had a vision. I had a vision that we could start interviewing mediums that we have at the Wonewoc camp. So when people come, they have an idea of the personalities that they get to meet and the unique skill levels that each medium possesses, because we're all so different. And so today, the first medium that I'm going to be interviewing is ATN Pate. And ATN is from Wisconsin, correct?
Well, originally Chicago, but I'm Wisconsin now for 20 some years.
Yeah, well, that's quite a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah.
Um, and how long have you been working at Wonewoc?
I returned last year, 2021, for the season. I took, I don't know, a few years off, maybe 6, 7, 8 years off. And before that, I probably served there for maybe 5 years. So, yeah, it's,
So you've
I've been
definitely
there
been a
to the,
mixture.
yeah, yeah.
So I actually, I was last year when I worked at Wonewoc, I had a reading by you, and I thought it was just really wonderful. I thought it was something different than what you would normally find because it was. Um, was very conceptual in the fact that it kind of gave parts of me that were inside direction that I normally wouldn't have had in a reading that would have been more like, say, evidential mediumship based. And I think one of the reasons for that is because you wear a lot of hats. Now you are a minister, correct?
That's correct.
And
Non-denominational.
non-denominational. Can you tell me
Yeah.
some other things that you do during your work weeks? What other hats do you wear?
Um, Massage therapy is um, that's where I spend a great deal of my time and service. Also, an author. I love to write. Love to write. Um, what else? I do the normal human, everyday living experiences. But that's my love. It's the workshops. I have a gathering every Monday evening, which reflects, of course, the miracles teachings,
Okay.
which some people are aware of, some not. So a lot of my service is around spirit and psychological well-being and body relaxation and wellness.
If someone were to want to find the workshops that you do, where would they find that at?
They can go on Google, you know, and Google is a verb now, so they can Google my name and just look under there, or my name at gmail.com. They can connect with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I want to show the book. The
Bam,
sun
there it
has no
is.
shadow. Yeah, isn't that neat? Um, so when did you write this book?
It was over a 5 year period, I think. From it was published. The original publication was in 2008. Um, so it came off the heels of a lot of pain and suffering and discovery and awarenesses on how to resolve that pain and suffering. And so it's been around for a while, and I'm actually in the process of re-editing it and lifting the language to where I am now.
Um,
And yeah, so it's a very practical book in um, forgiveness and love, and how to apply love in our workplace, in our home, and healing others and healing
mhm.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's a very practical discourse on spirituality.
So I know that the Waniwag bookstore has your book for sale during the season. If someone wanted to get an idea of your ideology, where would they find this book?
Um, Amazon.
Amazon?
There's
Okay, that's
yeah.
great.
Amazon's got everything, including the sun has no shadow.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just ask you some general questions because I just love
Yeah.
your ideology. I think a lot of us, well, not everybody, but I think a lot of us kind of struggle with finding purpose in life, and asking ourselves the question, why am I here? What is my purpose?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Yeah, that's the ultimate answer, ultimate question. And there's a lot of answers. And in my own discovery, um, you know, the purpose of living life is to express divine as best we know how. Um, we have our own ideas. There's 7.75 billion people on the planet, and we all have an idea about, who I am and why am I here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a common theme, um, and that common theme, when it's fulfilled, it demonstrates happiness, and that is serving something greater than my own personal wants and um, desires and agenda and motives. In our own person, we continually throughout the day, if someone listens to themselves, the conversation is I want, 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 constantly throughout the day. So if we just stop and pause and ask the source of life, or God, or divine, or universe, what do you want? And for me, that identifies the purpose. Why am I here? Is to be that agency, the ways and means for that unseen source to demonstrate itself in form. Now, who I am, to answer that question, is simply I am. And I know that seems kind of lofty, but another way of saying that is that I am an extension of the source that can be seen. And so I'm kind of like an ambassador or a representative of the unseen. And I would say, if I can be so bold, we all are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that may not be the truth in people's experience, but I found that to be the ultimate answer for my own happiness, is that when I give up the personal agenda and surrender to the guidance of the source of life. I mean, if we look around, the source is pretty intelligent. Something, someone, some energy created this vast universe. And I think in our kingdom, the human kingdom, we have this opportunity to be aware of that source of our own self. And being aware of the source of our own self, we join with that source and we demonstrate the qualities of that source. That's happiness.
No,
and I spent many years being unhappy, meaning fighting my own identity. So to me, the only problem with me, or some of the clients that I see, is an identity problem. Once we know who I am, who we are, then we can have that communion, and life tends to be more harmonious. So that's kind of my ideology.
yeah, no, I get it. And so when we identify, when our identity, what are we identifying with? If we're not identifying with source, and that's a source of unhappiness, what are we identifying with that makes us unhappy? Is that like more like ego based? Like
Yeah, and ego. Yeah, ego is a common word that's used. Some of us identify with our thoughts. Um, some of us identify with our culture,
or with
or
trauma?
trauma or national identity, a
Mhm.
gender identity, um, status in the community, or relationship in the family. And all of these identities are transient, but there is an identity kind of in the background that is aware of all of these transient identities. And that's the true identity, the one who, the same awareness, the pure awareness that doesn't interpret or judge or have an opinion. That's the true identity, where these transient identities kind of take a position while they're that identity. So a student may have an identity, a doctor may have an identity, someone of a certain race might have an identity, and there's an agenda that's attached to that. But that identity behind that, the one that can see all these identities, because I've been all these identities, I've been a little boy, I'm a grown man, um, but there's an identity behind that was witnessing all of the activities and thinking and emotions of those different identities.
So
So
every
that
time
ego.
when
No, go
we
ahead.
and so every time we that identity kind of comes in, that has a limitation, where if we actually aligned with our true identity, which is spirit, God, consciousness, however we want, that's that's infinity.
Happiness.
Yeah, that's happiness.
Yeah, the limitation is another. It's a synonym for unhappiness. It's a synonym for pain and suffering. We all have this sense of, we all want to be free and happy. We all want to be free and happy. Now
Yeah.
we use a mind, we use a body, but oftentimes we get caught in that's who I am. So, and there's a lot of fear with that ego, mind, body identity. And because of the word you use, limitation, there's a fear of lack. There's a fear of dying, and there's a fear of lack. And that's all attached to that restricted identity, or that illusory self, as I call it, the separated self. And
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I mean, I understand what you're saying, and when we think about having that fear-based perception, just the experience of how we perceive the world is so different, right? it's
yeah,
it's the idea of just to give an example, like, if I'm going to perceive the world as a magical place, or if I'm going to perceive the world as a scary place. I mean, it's
yeah,
the same things can happen, and your body will have a completely different response to that.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
so a lot of that comes from a term that you use, which is like self-talk, which is how we kind of get into that perception. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. We all got a voice in our head. Some of us have many voices, separate voices. There's some dialogue going on in there, and it's really simple. Um, it's not easy, okay, necessarily, but it's simple. Um, for me, it's like, which voice am I going to listen to? Which voice is going to be my guidance? And it just doesn't happen overnight. This discernment process takes time.
Mhm.
Um, the ego um, voice is based on what I learned in life, what I inherited from my parents, from school, from my culture. It's based on memories and pain. It's trial and error kind of a voice, and that's just living. And there's a lot of defenses that goes on with that ego voice. Don't hurt me again. I this is my stand in life, and no one's gonna go past this barrier. It's based on attack and counterattack and defense, and that's how fear is just created, rehearsed, and recreated and lived. And that's a very active voice. That voice dictates and directs each person. Now there's another voice, and we can call that the Holy Spirit. It's the little whisper that you know spiritual people talk about. Um, but it is a real voice. It's the heart. You know, it's the really um, it's the beauty, it's the truth, it's the love that is inherent. It's inherent in us. It's not something we have to learn. It's our nature. Our it is our neutral perception instead of our in interpreted or intercepted or eclipsed perception. It's seeing the God in everything. It's seeing the source of life in everything. And so it's not something that we see readily because we have a lot of life experiences of pain and hurt and suffering and memories that just eclipse that knowingness. But if we look at any infant or toddler before they get contaminated by us as adults, that's how they operate. And that's what we see in them. And that's our journey, is to come back and in aligning that awareness of that pure awareness. It's like our own awareness, own intelligence has the ability to align itself with that pure awareness. And that's the voice for God. And so and my way of doing that is to have a private, intimate dialogue with God. There's no technique. There are techniques, but the real technique is devotion. But it takes a lot of pain and suffering to get there. It takes a lot of humbling to get there.
Yeah.
Because that ego wants to listen and perpetuate its own voice because it doesn't want to die.
Right. Well,
Once
you
we choose,
deconstruct. Like peeling an onion. Peeling an onion, deconstructing.
And it will make you cry like an onion.
Yeah. So this summer at Wonewoc, are you going to be doing some classes?
Yes. I'm saying yes, but nothing scheduled yet.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites classes that I did last year is on forgiveness. And there's a really misunderstanding about true forgiveness. So I'm hoping that I can do that workshop again. It's about an hour long. There's some other classes I'd like to introduce more is communication. Communication is different than conversation.
Mm-hmm.
There's several classes. I have about 20 different workshops that I can bring to the table. But forgiveness is so powerful because that forgiveness is what love looks like here on the planet.
Oh.
We try to impose what love is, but forgiveness offers it's the peeling of the onion that you're talking about. Forgiveness takes away the eclipsing nature of the ego, and so love is revealed automatically when the old hurt is released, when we stop blaming people or blaming circumstances or accusing or stop complaining. When all of that is released, and it can be a fun project, it can be a fun adventure. It doesn't have to be the human type of forgiveness, meaning that someone did me wrong.
Yeah.
In real forgiveness, we're taking our stand in our own divinity and our own empowerment. And this is who I am. And I can create my own heaven or my own hell right here on earth. I'm no longer a victim to life. I am literally creating. As you mentioned, Michelle, that these thoughts do affect the body. Okay? And our thoughts do affect our environments. And we can recreate this one individual at a time. You know
Yeah.
what? I mean, that's the only way it works. We have to do it from internally because our internal, um, our true internal experience reveals and creates the external world. It is just that simple of a principle.
Yeah.
But we have to take responsibility 100%. And forgiveness is one of the most powerful workshops to address getting back into knowing who I really am
Yeah.
and living and abiding in that knowing.
Yeah. I get it. I find your messages just so incredibly empowering for the soul.
All
You
right.
know,
Well, I hope so. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So again, just to go back, your book is called "The Sun Has No Shadow." Can be found on Amazon, and you'll be at the Wonewoc Spiritualist Camp this summer, hopefully quite a bit. And to if we can go to the Wonewoc website, and you should be able to get a listing of all the classes, which probably should be up by, I would assume, mid-May.
yeah.
Yeah. And probably a schedule for you too. Um, so that's
Yeah, we're,
great.
we're working on that.
I know. I hear you. I'm the same way. I'm moment by moment at this point. Well, thank you, Etienne, for joining us today. And we'll see you this summer at Wonewoc.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.